In 1970, Don Shula became the Dolphins' head coach. 1970 was the year of the new look, the new season, the new era.
The Dolphins started in Miami, I believe, in 1966. And I've been a season ticket holder since 1966. Once Don came there, they started doing pretty well.
Firing for Woolley, he's got it, and he's there.
The thing that really is one of my coaching philosophies is somehow, some way, get the winning edge in a ball game.
The first year he got there, we were 10-4. The second year he was there, we were in the Super Bowl. The third and fourth year, we won the Super Bowl.
The Miami Dolphins are the champions of the pro football world. They have won the Super Bowl for the second time running.
This right here is the ultimate.
He was an innovator.
I don't think that anything good ever comes out of losing.
He won with Unitas, he won with Morrow, he won with Greasy.
Don Shula, his 100th coaching victory.
He won with a running game.
Miami has won Super Bowl VII.
He won with Marino. He won with a small line. He won with a small defense. He adjusted like no other coach I've seen.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Veterans Stadium. Tom Hammond and Chris Collinsworth on hand to see Don Shula take one more crack at that record win number 325.
To me, he's the best. He has the most wins. I'm sure that was, one of those things for him that he wanted to achieve.
Then we need a drive on offense. We need a drive. We got to put it together. We got to start running with the ball, pass protecting, making plays.
Unfortunately, I was hurt at the time. Doug Peterson actually was the quarterback that finished the game.
I threw the ball 6 times. We ended up coming back, and we won 19-14.
This is number 325, and it couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
That was Coach Don Shula's 325th career win, who beat the legendary George Halas.
He becomes the all-time winningest coach in the history of the National Football League.
To break that kind of record and to be so consistent for so long and win so many games,
You're a big part of all that, baby.
It's always very special.
He was just the best.
I don't know anybody who's more of a gentleman, who is more loyal, who is more committed to excellence than Mr. Rooney.
The organization of the Pittsburgh Steelers, from the top down, the Rooney family, they really, truly care about not only the team itself, but everyone who walks through that stadium.
Well, the Rooney Rule states that a team that's hiring a head coach must interview at least one minority. Some were saying it wouldn't work. Some were saying these teams will, just not do it right. But the fact that they had to interview has really worked because teams and the owners see and say, hey, that guy's not too bad. And they bring him back and, gets the door open.
You know how it is. We won the Super Bowl. We'll take it. There's no doubt.
I hope that in a few years there's no need for a Rooney Rule. It's like talking about the various positions. That the players only played the defensive positions. They were never quarterbacks. That's all gone by the wayside. You never hear talk about that anymore. It's just moved on, and I hope that that's the way it is with coaches. Let's hope that as time goes on, everybody will be considered as equal, and I think that it's coming.
Don is, I think, one of the most unusual guys in the world. As the game would go along, all of a sudden Don would go grab the phone and go, let's get after their ass. When he said that, he meant start throwing the football, quit running this thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Don Coryell and your pilot, Dan Fouts, welcome to San Diego.
Don Coryell, that was what he was all about.
Great catch! Touchdown, Chargers!
Bounces the quarterback, fires him downfield, a touchdown!
Is that what you wanted, a touchdown?
Coryell's contribution to pro football is profound. It was the most exciting passing offense the league had seen. And then to try to stop it, defenses had to come up with something different. The feeling that we had taking the field was that we were unstoppable.
You threw on first down, you threw on second down, you threw on third down. And if you were even close to getting it on fourth down, you threw on fourth down.
There's no geniuses in football, but I would say if there was a genius in just one little category, okay, it would be Don on formation. He was very flexible and very creative.
Don added the dimension of a tight end to an offense and the movement of that tight end.
They're mixing up the middle, the outside, the middle, the outside, and that keeps the defense moving. That's really the key element of the Charger offensive design. Got it, win, Matt, win, goal, touchdown.
Playing for Coryell was absolutely the greatest, and I know I was the envy of a lot of players around the league.
Don Coryell should be in the Hall of Fame because he changed the game.
Jerry Jones is the single most important figure in football in the last quarter century.
Welcome to Jerry World in Arlington, Texas, a sports and entertainment palace that stands alone and has raised the bar to an entirely new level.
The business model really changed when Jerry Jones got in the NFL.
It's the stuff that people will be talking about for centuries as far as what he did at the time to get Fox Sports involved in the NFL and what salaries and the TV revenue and what impact that had on our game and how it allowed it to grow the way that it has.
Just 4 years into his ownership, when he had already challenged the league on sponsorship deals and say, I'll put Pepsi in my stadium, I don't care. We're gonna do what's best for the Dallas Cowboys.
This is Christmas to me. The Cowboys are America.
Jerry Jones really changed the course of NFL history.
It'll be a long time, in my opinion, before someone has the kind of impact that Jerry Jones has had on the NFL.
He was a passing guru savant. He was a wonderful, charming guy.
Out of bounds, you stupid guy! Get tighter on him! You're giving off too damn much! Will you dumb...
Sid Gillman probably changed the passing game more than anyone else.
Hadel and Allworth pool their talents again for a tremendous 66-yard touchdown.
The vertical passing game particularly seemed to be something that you could almost change the geometry of the field, which has now become real common.
Now, it doesn't look to me like you're running well out there. Now, if you can run, your place is back here, see? And let Billy Johnson take the return. Hey, Jeff!
He would take a ball player that he knew who could play like 2 or 3 positions, and he would just move him around. Somebody who really knew football and knew how to get it done. Best thing could happen to me coming in, having been a running back and having to learn to play wide receiver and looking at the coverages.
Little Billy.
His innovation has probably spurred radical evolution.
Mahomes first and 10 from his own 17. Long, he's got Hardman wide open. 83-yard touchdown strike.
From his tree, you had Eric Coryell, Joe Gibbs, Bill Walsh, Sam Weiss, all these guys. It's unbelievable how far-reaching it was.
Oh, no, don't do that.
Clearly, Tom Brady seems to have made a deal with the devil because he's not getting old. Every other quarterback got old.
Over half of his career, he's been in the Super Bowl.
But it was just too much for them to stop Tom Brady and company.
A guy who's been in 9 Super Bowls, has won 6 of them.
You have to have a certain obsession about winning and understanding that, there's no in between.
Hey, we've been in worse situations than this, huh? Come on now.
There's winning a Super Bowl, and then there's failure. I haven't seen many do it the way Tom does.
You're too old! You're too old!
Here he is over the age of 40. He won his first Super Bowl in 2001.
So Tom Brady throws his first ever Super Bowl touchdown pass.
And then basically 20 years later, he's still a favorite to win another Super Bowl, and he's won 6. That's awesome.
I think the most obvious hip-hop to quarterback parallel for Tom Brady would just be like Jay-Z. Jay-Z still dominates today. Even if you think like we've moved on to like all these younger guys who are exciting and crazy, it's just like, well, the minute Jay-Z drops an album, everyone's like, oh yeah, this is why you're a legend. And I feel like Tom Brady can just keep playing for however many years he wants. He would ultimately decide when he wants to retire, not the other way around.
It's all right, we're gonna beat their ass in the second half.
He is such a competitor, and he's so brilliant in the way that he is, his career has played out.
Tom short drop, looks left, throws for Edelman, touchdown, Patriots! They're back in the lead!
What he's done training-wise to take care of his body and his mind is extraordinary. Brady does all those things because he wants to play till he's 50.
Now throw down the middle for Dorsett, touchdown, Patriots! This guy's just dicing you right now.
Hey, best ever. Ever. I don't know about that. Ever. I love you. Dad, ever.
42 years old. We got to go on that diet. We got to, whatever he's doing.
In Canton, Ohio, where the sport had its beginnings, the Professional Football Hall of Fame was born. A home for football history, where visitors are greeted by the legendary Jim Thorpe.
My grandma was always really passionate about telling me about my family history and that we have a Native American history. She was always very expressive about the fact that we were related to Jim Thorpe. He was of the same tribe as Sac and Fox Indians out of Oklahoma. And my grandma was always like, you know, Jim Thorpe's your cousin. He was achieving athletic accolades at almost every level in almost every sport. I mean, pro baseball, pro football, not to mention what he did in the Olympics. I have a Wheaties box with Jim Thorpe on the Wheaties box. And it's always been an inspiration to me to see and feel that I had a connection to Jim Thorpe.
Red Grange was a star player at the University of Illinois in the early to mid 1920s. It's when the game was just beginning to catch on.
How did Red Grange change the face of professional football?
When he played his last game at the university, we signed him. 4 days later, on Thanksgiving Day, he did play. Needless to say, the place was sold out completely, and also for every game that we had left.
Red Grange, a prodigious performer packing the pigskin. He and his jersey number 77 were familiar figures on any football field. A marked man in every game, but in every game he made his mark. That was Red Grange, the galloping ghost.
Red Grange, he was the hero. He was the ultimate, and he went on to become one of the very first inductees into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
He was a great addition to professional football. In fact, we considered him the eternal light of the National Football League.
I mean, Doug was a game changer, especially for me being an African-American quarterback. The way he carried himself, the way he played, the passion, and I just wanted to be just like him.
Butch Jones. Butch Jones was a writer in Jackson, Mississippi. He asked me how long I had been a black quarterback. And the way I answered the question really was to the fact that when I left Grambling, because when I was at Grambling, I was just Grambling's quarterback. But when I got into the National Football League, they colored me black. We're here to win the football game, and Doug Wills being black quarterback is not going to win it. The Washington Redskins, anybody, we're going to win it together, or either we're going to lose it together.
Honestly, there was nobody on our team thought of Doug as a black quarterback. And then we got there that week in San Diego, and that's all anybody was talking about.
Doug Williams. He is a man about to step solidly into the pages of social history.
And then, of course, Doug made the most out of that night.
History! This is history in the making!
Super Bowl MVP, Doug Williams of the Washington Redskins.
The first black quarterback to start a Super Bowl, the first black quarterback to win a Super Bowl. I tell you what I hope Doug Williams does. I hope he puts to bed once and for all about the black athlete in professional football.
I think the Super Bowl kind of hydrated that situation and propped it up more than anything, but not so much the fact because I was black playing, because I think I came in a perfect time for a lot of the young guys to say, hey, I can do this. But the Super Bowl was the springboard for them.
Are you ready for
The NFL prior to Bert Bell was a very primitive operation. He really believed the game of professional football, presented properly with the right kind of structure and organization, could be hugely successful in this country, but it had a lot of work to do. And he was the guy that was willing to roll up his sleeves and do it.
We expect to have the greatest year and show the greatest football was never known in the history of the world.
I remember Bert Bell's son, Upton, telling me stories about how Bert used to do the NFL schedule.
He had this whole thing with dominoes, and he had the 12 teams across and the dates are down. He would match the weak against the weak, the strong against the strong. By the middle of the season, everybody was in it. That's where you get the famous phrase, on any given Sunday with my schedule, any team can beat any other team.
I want to say that I never saw anything like this.
I mean, he's the guy that came up with the idea of the draft.
The league was going down. 22 teams went under. 2 top teams kept winning.
But Bert said, look, what we want to do is we need to kind of create equality within the league. We kind of need to create some kind of parity within the league where the league is truly competitive. So that's when he came up with the idea of what we now know as the draft. Then it became adopted by other sports, and everybody's kind of working off of his blueprint, really.
Quarterback John Elway of Stanford.
Good evening, Nashville, home of the 2019 NFL Draft.
And obviously overtime, sudden death overtime was his idea.
He proposed the owners, he said, what happens if a game ends up in a tie? Are we going to tell America they tied? So he convinced the owners.
Overtime, you know, anything can happen. You'll never see another one like this one.
I mean, he was really one of the, not just one of the great figures in American sport, but I think one of the great figures in American history.